What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today is the official race recap of the TCS Toronto Waterfront Marathon, where I attempted to go sub 3 hours in the marathon. If you guys have been following along on my Instagram, on Strava, you probably know by now that unfortunately I did not hit my goal of the sub 3 hour marathon, but I did have an unreal time running this race, and I'm going to break it all down for you. This is going to be the full race recap from the start of getting there at the expo, race morning, the full race breakdown, my stop at the porta potty, my legs giving out on me, crossing the finish line, all the hype, all that good stuff. So if you're interested in all that stuff, stay tuned because I'm going to fully break it down. Before we dive into that, I have been rating all the medals that I've gotten. This is probably of this season, 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth. The Toronto Waterfront Marathon medal is pretty legit. I'm going to give it a 7.7. Seems like a fair rating. I'm forgetting all the ratings that I got, but my number one so far this year was the Chili Half. This has got to be number two. It is like super. This is a solid medal. A lot of the medals you get are like these flimsy, cheap ones. They did not cheap out on this. So really like this medal. It looks gold. I unfortunately didn't have a gold medal day, but that is okay. I'm going to take you all the way to the start of the race, which was at the expo. So I went into the race a day early. So we got there Saturday, went to the expo, pick up the bibs. It was very, very smooth. For how big of a race this is, I was very impressed with how smooth it was. I was able to pick up my bib super easy. I was able to pick up a couple other people's bibs very easily as well. It seemed on the website that it was going to be very challenging to do this, to pick up other people's bibs. It was not super easy. Outside of that, the expo itself was okay. I don't really know if I'm a fan of the expos because I end up not really wanting to hang out and see all the booths, and there's just a ton of people, and you're already anxious about the race, and you don't really want to be weaving in and out of all these people. So I don't know. I might not have a good view on the expos, but it was fine. ASICS was there. They had a lot of their products there, which was cool. I was tempted to buy the Super Blast 2s, but I didn't. They had some cool products there you could go check out at the booths. Outside of that, it was nothing special. But it was very easy to pick up the bibs. My main goal for the day before the race was to stay off my feet as much as possible. When you're traveling for a race, and I was going in, and some of my friends were going to be there, it's very easy to end up putting a ton of kilometers on your feet. And before you know it, your legs are already shot before you start the race. So I definitely didn't want to do that. Luckily, it was a full day of great college football. So got to the hotel, checked in. We were staying at the hotel that was literally 2 steps from the start line, which was by far the best decision that we made for this race. Watched some college football, ate some food, and then went out to dinner. Had a super great time. I had my best friend there, Matt, his family, my other best friend, business partner, Will. He was running his first marathon. Matt was running his first marathon. We all went out for dinner the night before, Boston Pizza. At this point of carb loading, I really didn't want to eat any more food, but I did. Typically, lately, I've been eating before my races just spaghetti, meatballs, easy, simple, stomach tolerates it. So wrapped that up and then went back to the hotel. At this time, it was, probably around 7 o'clock, 7:30. Got back to the hotel, chilled, watched some more football, and then tried to get to bed early. I typically sleep like trash the night before a race. This was no different. I probably got about 5 hours of sleep heading into race day morning. Race day morning, typically like to wake up 2-ish hours before. I think I set my alarm for 4:40 a.m. So I was up for around that time and immediately started getting in my morning meal, which is typically a bagel with peanut butter, honey, 2 scoops of Tailwind, which is about 60 grams of carbs, a banana, and then coffee. I had 2 cups of coffee heading into the race. That was my meal. Usually like to get that in around 2 hours before. That way I have time to use the washroom and get that stuff moving. I was very antsy and anxious which is expected before a big race, especially like knowing that I was going to be pushing myself for a big goal. So I have a hard time just like sitting around. So I was kind of pacing around the room. I remember I was sitting there probably an hour before the start of the race, and we were literally 2 minutes away from the start line. I was like, I'm going to get changed. And I literally just had to put on like my tights and my shoes. So safe to say I was a bit anxious for the race, but at this point I woke up and I was feeling really, really good. The forecast for the race was looking warm. Like it was definitely warmer than I expected. But having trained all summer, I wasn't really, concerned about this. I had trained in really, really hot temps. So anything that came that day was probably going to be cooler than what I experienced in the summer. Headed over to the start line about 45 minutes before the race. I was in the red crowd, which is the first crowd. It was an absolute debacle. There's just so many people. Like, it's just too much. It really stresses me out. There's like everywhere you look, there's people, and you guys know how this goes. Like, humans just become unreasonable when you're in like such a large group. Like, I just don't think we're meant to be in that big of a group together. People jumping over the barriers, people trying to push to the front of the corral, and I'm trying not to get like frustrated with the fact that I'm just getting like elbowed and pushed through for people to get to the front of the crowd, which we're already at the front of the crowd. It's like we're not getting any closer, and then like, yeah, it was just a whole thing, and I was trying not to get stressed out, but I was trying to get as close to the front as I could so I didn't have to have like a big distance to travel before we crossed the chip timer. I got pretty close, and then once the start of the gun went off, it spread out like fairly quickly, and I was able to get going. But the start of these big races are just like super stressful, and it kind of reminds me of like why I actually probably enjoy running smaller, more local races. But once you get out there and the crowd is there and there's a ton of people and the energy, you're like, okay, there's a reason why these races are super fun to do. So gun went off at 8:00, got out, and my goal for the race was to go sub 3 hours. I wanted to do anything I could to get under 3 hours, 2:59, 30, whatever. I was targeting based off of kind of my splits and stuff, and the paces that I rode on my arm, was looking for around like a 2:58:30, something in and around that finish time. So my goal was to kind of just get out and get into race pace. I didn't want to start slow and start to split down. I've never had success with that. I've never had success with like starting slower, slowly working down, and then finishing fast. So I kind of try to get out to race pace as quickly as I could. And I did that, and I felt good the first 2 kilometers, into the race. Like I said, it kind of opened up pretty quickly, and I didn't really have to worry about just being like congested with too many people. Now, I would say this may have been one mistake that I made in the race, looking back on it, but I peed probably 10 times before I left. And of course, no matter how much you try to pee before the start line, I had to pee, and like it was getting to the point when I couldn't get to the porta potty because there's so many people lined up for like the crowds that are behind me, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go and start running, and maybe it'll go away and I'll be able to hold it. But it didn't go away; it got worse. I had to pee, and I'm like, at this point, I had to make a decision. It's like, A, do I pee myself? 2, do I hold this and then be super uncomfortable later on in the race and then pee myself, or do I stop at the first porta potty, just get this out, and then get back on track? I chose to go to the porta potty, the first porta potty I saw. The reason I decided to do this is because I thought about peeing myself. I'm not afraid to pee myself, but I was like, if I'm peeing myself at 2 kilometers, I don't want to sit in this for the whole race. I didn't think it'd be that big of a deal to stop, take a pee, get back and going. So I did that. Probably took me about a minute and 30 to take a pee and then get back out there and running, which then I wouldn't say I sent it by any means. I definitely like sped up my pace a little bit, and I had a couple kilometers where I was a little bit faster than like what I would have been predicting to run for the marathon, more to just get myself back into a good space in terms of like being on pace for hitting my splits. Now, looking back after the result of what happened to my legs at 34 kilometers, did that have an impact on it? Maybe, maybe not. I'm okay with it next time I'm just going to pee my pants, or I'm just going to make sure that I pee an 11th time before I get out there. But I made a stop to pee at that point and then got back going, and I'm feeling great. Like, I honestly felt so good to start this race. My legs felt great. I felt fit. I felt in a good headspace. And I got going, and, looking at the paces, I'm right on target. In the first 10K, I'm hitting 412s, 414s, couple of little faster ones there because I took a pee, and feeling really good, and linked up with a couple of guys that I just knew from Hamilton area, and they had the same goal as me, and they were kind of running in a little bit of a pack. So shout out to Matt, shout out to Mike. There was one other guy that was in there that they were running together, and I kind of latched onto their group, and we ended up running majority of the race together. We all had the same goal of going sub 3, and till I could no longer hold on. But it was super great to actually run in a little bit of a pack. There wasn't a sub 3 hour, a 3 hour marathon pacer, which does make a difference. Like, running a pack just like mentally feels good. You're probably working a little less hard in a pack than you are solo. So it was really cool to link up with them, and we cruised for quite a while. So at the 10K mark, feeling really, really good. The next kind of checkpoint for me was at the halfway mark. And I will say one of the things that probably impacted me not reaching my goal a little bit, and I underestimated, was the rolling hills that were on this course. It wasn't crazy, wasn't a ton of elevation, but there was a bit of rolling hills, like whether that was like going over overpasses or even on the back half of the race, there was a couple sections where there's some up and down. And I think that really added to the fatigue of my legs because, I didn't send the hills, but I also had to make sure I was maintaining good power on the hills so I could keep my pace up, to make sure that I hit my goal. So I definitely think that was a factor into me not reaching my goal. Something that I could work on in training in the future. But got to the halfway point and honestly feeling like super good. I remember like rounding the corner just about 20K, seeing Kendra. She was holding a dig deep sign, which was super awesome. And I was feeling good. The boys were rolling together. I was like on the top of the world, probably the best 21K I had. I think I split half at like 1:29:30, which is like right on pace for, going sub 3. The group was going strong. The morale was high. Fueling was on point. Everything was good. I will say like my legs felt a bit tired, obviously, and a little bit more like fatigued than maybe I've felt before, but it was nothing that was like concerning to me where I was like, oh, I can't work through this, or this is going to turn really bad. And we got back into it, and from 21 to probably 30K, things were feeling good. The course definitely got a little bit tougher in that stretch of the race because we were outside of the city at this point, so the hype was a lot less. There wasn't as much crowd support. We had to go on like these cobblestone section, and then we had to go, or like a brick cobblestone section, and then we had to go down this path, and it was just like, it was a bit weird. And on that path there was a couple ups and downs, and like I was definitely feeling like the fatigue, but I mean that's what was expected running a race at that level for me. So again, at this point, like mentally I'm feeling good. My fueling is on point. I have no like cognitive fatigue, no worries that like I'm going to bonk or anything like that. Legs are tired, but like nothing that I wouldn't, consider to be normal. And then we hit 30K and we hit this stretch where it's pretty lonely and pretty long. There's no crowd support. It was hot. It was pretty exposed. So I was definitely starting to feel a little bit of fatigue there. And like, you're going through mental battles throughout the whole race. And at that point I was like, man, 30K, we got 12K left. It's about an hour of running. Like I can do this. Like I was feeling like the group was feeling good. We're going to nail this. And then that's when things started to change. So we got to the section of the course in the beaches of Toronto, and this was probably around 32K is when all of a sudden my legs just decided that it was time to not work anymore. And there was a bit of a rolling section in this part of the course, and I could feel my legs slowly starting to turn to like rock. That's the only way that I could describe it for people to kind of maybe get an understanding of what was happening. It went from feeling like I was flying to like my legs were starting to get heavy and feel like rocks, and there were some rolling sections. And I remember just like telling myself, okay, just survive this section, this up. When you round the corner at the end of this street, you'll get a little bit of a downhill and we'll regroup. So this is one way that I've always done things, is to like mentally help myself out, is like, hey, hold on here. This is a tougher section. We'll get through it and then we'll get back up onto pace. And at that point, my kilometers were dropping down to like a 420, 425, which I wasn't overly concerned like that was going to derail me, but I was like, okay, we're feeling this fatigue. I rounded that corner and it did not get better. It did not go more downhill. It was rolling, so I got some ups again, and that stretch, I think it would have been, let me see here, kilometer 34. That is when my legs just absolutely got so heavy that I could not generate enough force to keep pushing myself at like a 415 to 414 kilometer pace. As no matter how hard I tried, my legs just were not working the way that I needed them to. And I felt like at that point, if I kept pushing and I kept pushing, that my legs were just going to fully seize up and cramp. And at that point, I was kind of concerned, like, if I did that, then I'm still like 7K away from the finish line. Like, this is going to be a terrible experience getting back. So I did at that point walk. This is the first time I've ever walked during a marathon. And I actually at this point in time thought, okay, I'm going to walk a little bit here, regather myself, shake my legs out, and then get back on pace. I've done that before in some training runs where I've had a hard time, and it actually helps kind of like reset a little bit. I did this, and then the second I tried to get back up to pace, it just wasn't happening. And honestly, in that moment, I kind of knew like that was it, that probably not going to hit my goal of going sub 3. I was like right on the line with it, and I knew if I gave myself too much time trying to work through this, that it wasn't going to happen. I tried again to get back up to pace, and I couldn't. If I look at my splits, I did like a 426, so 459 at 35K, 36K, I did a 454, and then it just slowly went downhill from there, which sucks. In that moment, I've shared this on Instagram, like, there was never a moment of disappointment in myself, but there was definitely frustration. I was frustrated because I never had this happen to me in a race before. I had the best 34-kilometer stretch of running I probably ever put together. I felt so good. My nutrition was on point. I did not feel like I was bonking from like a fueling standpoint. Like, I was cognitively with it. I didn't feel like my nervous system was fried. My legs just turned to rock, and I could no longer generate any force. I'm not sure exactly why. I have some thoughts on this, but I'm not sure exactly why that happened. But from that point on, I was just like trying to survive. I didn't want to have to walk it in. I didn't want to have to like stop because I'm like full out cramping and my legs just won't stop cramping. And I was worried that was going to happen. So I significantly slowed my pace. I ended up clocking like a 535 kilometer, a 622 kilometer, and around the 40K mark, my full hamstrings seized up, and I did have to like walk again a little bit. And basically I just grinded it out for the remainder of the race, and ended up coming in at a 3:10:51, which is 12 seconds slower than my last marathon that I did in Mississauga, where I PR'd with a 3:10:20 something. And 12 minutes short of my goal of doing like a sub 3 hour marathon. And yeah, it was frustrating. But it was frustrating, and it was humbling, and it was a reminder of why I love running, all in one. It was humbling because I literally couldn't go faster. It's crazy what running does. Like, your body can do some of the most amazing things that you never thought you could do for 34 kilometers, and then all of a sudden, gone. and having to slow down to paces that are a minute slower than like an easy run pace that I would go out and do, and it feeling like I couldn't barely even do that is very humbling, and a reminder of why doing these goals and pushing your body to these limits are so challenging. And I love the crowd support there. It was amazing, but like, they don't know what you're going through, and the crowd is cheering you on, and and deep down you're like, man, this isn't your best effort. Like, I should be going faster than this. People are blowing by you, which again is another humbling thing. And like, they're all doing their own thing and pushing their bodies. And it was just one of those experiences where I was, reminded why the marathon is what the marathon is, and it is a very challenging distance. And then I also remembered that like, this is what I've wanted from running. I wanted to challenge myself, find out where my limits are, push my body as hard as I could, which a lot of times will result in failure. And I've had great success with the marathon over the last couple of years that I've been running them, slowly cutting my marathon down from a 4:05 to a 3:10, having success, having PRs. And this was the first time in a long time that I didn't. And that's why I love running, because you can find ways to continue to challenge yourself. Everything can be going the way that you want, and sometimes it doesn't work out. So it was a very interesting experience, and I think I loved every moment of it, even though I didn't accomplish the goal that I wanted to. All of those things that I just talked about is why I love running. And it was still super cool to be able to finish across the line. There were so many people there, being able to just see everyone from all walks of life, all walks of fitness levels, skill levels, accomplishing a goal that is extremely hard, whether you're doing the half marathon or the marathon. It's so humbling, and it's so cool to be in that environment. So it's important to remind myself of that, when I'm not accomplishing a goal that I set for myself. And even cooler than that, this race was meaningful to me on more than just like a personal level. And I've shared this with you guys before, but I've been coaching some people to run their first marathon. More specifically, some of the closer people in my life, my best friend Matt, my best friend and my business partner Will, some of my other athletes. And something that I love more than having success myself is seeing other people around me overcome and do hard things to accomplish success, and to watch them cross the finish line for their first marathons and do something that they never thought that they could do, and battle through and push through the same challenges that I had, was super, super cool, super rewarding. And I think it's something that I enjoy even more than accomplishing my own goals. So that was the first time I had a lot of, like, let's call them athletes on my team that I'm helping coach, put themselves out there in a race, and to see them have the success after, the 16, 18 weeks of putting in a ton of work, was super rewarding. So that was really special to me. So, as much as there was a failure from a goal standpoint, there was a lot of amazing things that came from this, and I'm super grateful, for the opportunity to do that. And I'll be back. I have some takeaways from the race that I can work on. And the reason I wasn't disappointed is the fact that I gave it my all. Like, this 16 weeks, I've tried my best to document it for you guys, but the 16 weeks of prep, I've done everything I could to be as consistent as possible, to hit the paces that I need to hit in training, to fuel, to recover, the sacrifices it takes for myself and the people around you, to put yourself in the position to go after the goal. And I did all that. I did everything that I could, and it didn't go the way that I wanted to on the day. And I can live with that. I can rest my head knowing I did everything that I could, and on that day, it just wasn't the day. There'll be another day. I'll be back. And that's why, I wasn't disappointed. So we'll learn from it. I enjoyed making this series. It won't be the last time that I make a series. Right now, the focus is going to be on recovering, getting the body in a good place. I've been really pushing the running over the last 8 9, 10 months. So to get some downtime, to lift some weights again, this is the longest stretch that I've been off like strength training consistently. So I'm going to get back into lifting some weights. I'm going to keep running. We're going to have some fun with training. I will obviously be jumping back into another marathon prep. We'll be going after the sub 3 hour goal again. But I haven't really decided exactly what races I'll be doing, when I'll be doing that, but I will be sure to document it and let you guys know. Before I wrap this up, I just want to give a big shout out to my coach, Isaac Morgado. He's helped me through the last 2 marathons, and he's done everything that he could to give me the best chance to have success. I'm super appreciative of his guidance. I look forward to continue to get back to the drawing board and work through this with him. And of course, a massive shout out to my wonderful girlfriend, Kendra, who constantly and unconditionally supports me through all this craziness. I'm not the easiest person to deal with when I am in the middle of a marathon prep, and I'm very focused on trying to accomplish a goal that's meaningful to me. So for her support on all the days through training, on the race, all that stuff, I'm very, very, very thankful and appreciative of that. So massive shout out to her. And then big shout out to everyone who I helped coach to their first marathon, half marathon. Matt, my best friend, crushed it, did his first marathon in Toronto. Will, he crushed it, did his first marathon in Toronto. Had my friend Andre, crushed it, did his first marathon in Chicago. Had a client of mine, Will, who did his first 20K trail run. What else? Who else do we have? Johnny. Man, Johnny is an inspiration. I've never talked about him much on here, but you should check out his Instagram, Johnny Goes Running. He has been on a crazy weight loss journey. I think he was almost like 500 pounds, and I'm not joking, actually 500 pounds. He's down to like 366 pounds. He just ran his first half marathon. Super sick. Like, it honestly, probably one of the most inspiring things, and I was lucky enough to be able to like give him some guidance on that. We've been friends for a long time. We played football together back in university, so that was like, super, super awesome. Big shout out to Lauren. She works with us at the movement. She ran her first half marathon. Just like a lot of really cool things going on outside of me running my race. So super, super stoked about all of that. And lastly, thank you to you guys for tuning in, subscribing. I got this channel up to 105 subscribers, I think, which is pretty damn cool. I started this back in February. I posted my first video saying I was going to document my races and some of the things that I was doing up until this sub 3 hour attempt. I'm very proud of myself for being consistent with that. I thank you guys for subscribing, for liking, for sharing the videos, for reaching out on Instagram, for following me on Strava, all that good stuff. I really do appreciate it. And I hope I can continue to provide you guys with some value. I am a very, very amateur runner trying to push myself to find out what I'm capable of. I'm not special. I'm no different than you tuning in to watch this. And I hope that inspires you to maybe challenge yourself to do something that you never thought possible, whether that's going for your first 20K hike, whether that's going for your first 5K, whether that's pushing for your first half marathon, your first marathon, whatever it is. I hope it inspires you to get a little uncomfortable, to challenge yourself, to dig deep. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. Make sure you check out Strava. Make sure you dig deep. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.